it is important as a prisoner to have people advocating for you on the outside, advocating for change and just shedding lights on things that work and things that don't.
There's a lot of guys with very long sentences that are in here doing very awesome, productive work.
It's the Department of Corrections, not the Department of Incarceration. So what are we doing? I think first and foremost, our goal as staff needs to be to correct or to help facilitate growth.
If you can do it here, you can do it anywhere. If you can get inmates and staff to come closer to a line, you can do that anywhere. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pull Up Podcast. What's the Pull Up Podcast? Well, we're going to talk about it. First, I'll introduce myself. I'm Bo Cornelius, currently Director of Prison Ministry for Our Daily Bread Ministries. I'm also the coordinator for the Global Leadership Academy program, a leadership development program currently in prisons and jails. We're currently at Jefferson City Correctional Center, which is a maximum security prison across the street from the facility where I spent 6 years.
Why do we call it the pull-up? Why is it called
Because
the
we're going to pull up on people in prison. If you got a good idea, if you got a good example of somebody who's leading in prison, let us know. You can contact us through Our Daily Bread Ministries. Reach out to me directly, and we can contact your facility, and we might come pull up on you and see how you're leading. We want to know how people are using leadership principles to change their environment currently. So we're going to talk to field ministers who are mentoring guys who are going through mental health problems, guys who are going through drug addiction, guys who are going through in ADSEG for every variety of reasons. We're going to follow people who are helping guys in hospice care inside of prison. We're going to sit down with guys who started a leadership program that's successful inside of prison and talk about all of the struggles that these people have along the way in doing what they do. Hopefully we'll be sitting down with Jefftown here and talking about some of the things that they do in audio, video. There's so many awesome and creative ways that you can be a positive influence inside. I think most of the time people think that they have to be some profound earth movement. Is no one individual does that. Find a lane and get in it. We're just trying to make a bad thing better. You have a lane. You may not have all of the intellect. You may not have all of the resources. But you have something. If you're doing time, you have a value. That time is a value if you've done that. If you've just pressed your bunk for 5 years, well, get out of your bunk and start doing something of value so that you can be a positive influence instead of just complaining about the system and saying, man, the system is unfair and needs to change. Be part of the solution. It doesn't have to be fair for it to happen. And I can tell you that it's awesome to leave it better than you found it. And, that's what we're called to do.
Amen.
I'm Kyle Kempker, a Deputy Warden at Algoa Correctional Center. I met Bo Cornelius 4 years ago while he was incarcerated at Algoa Correctional Center. 5 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we've kind of been on a leadership journey together. And it started out my assistance in kind of the creation of GLA to remove some barriers and stuff. I was a major at the time at Algoa, and I think over the next couple episodes, you're going to hear how that story transpires. So,
I'm Jonathan Irons. I was formerly incarcerated at this very prison. I believe I sat in this very location. I roam these shelves endlessly. This is one of my favorite places in prison. And I'm here because I want to show people, man, what people go through in here and what life is like, and that there is life, and that there are people that deserve dignity, and there is humanity in here. And I want to show you what life is like to the best of my ability and kind of walk with you through my journey, because there's no way to just completely expose 23 and a half years of experience other than to bring you in as much as I can. And the only way to really do that is basically tell the stories behind these walls that no one gets to see. Like, we are blessed with an opportunity to share what goes on in here in a respectful, tasteful way.
Why aren't you here anymore?
Oh, because I got exonerated. I finally proved my innocence after spending 20 hours a day reading and researching law and drafting my petition, and my family and my wife advocating for me on the outside. Like, it is important as a prisoner to have people advocating for you on the outside, advocating for change, and just shedding lights on things that work and things that don't.
We're here to show leaders in prison who are leading where they are, who are doing the work of making their environment better, making their situations better, despite of the challenges and the struggles that are the reality of prison. I spent 6 years in prison. I went to prison at 40 with a family. I had a professional life. I had a personal life. I was established in my community. And so my prison experience, I know, was unique. I was supported. I was educated. I was in a position to handle the adversity, learn from it, and do something about it. And so that's what we hope you will choose to do from listening to this podcast. We're going to tell you stories of people who are leading now in prison, people who have done amazing things like start the Global Leadership Academy, like exonerate themselves from prison, like being willing to start a resident-driven, as we call it, leadership program that allows us autonomy, that allows us to propose things that we believe are good for us and we feel trusted and listened to. We want to show you how that's done. We're going to take you into some extreme environments and show you where guys are currently leading. Guys like Brandon and Cortez, who started in the most crazy of ways, a mentor and mentee relationship. We're going to drop in on Cousin LA. We're going to talk about the adversity around starting the GLA program, what the GLA program is, what the hopes are for it, and the struggle around getting it going. So we really hope that out of this, you will gain a desire to change your environment, to do something positive, that you will get on a journey of not only personal development, but developing the community within the prison where you are, making a bad environment better in whatever way possible. That's our goal for you. And we're going to show you guys that are doing it. We're going to be pulling up on guys in ADSEG, in the hole. We're going to be going into all of these different environments and actually showing you what they're doing. There's a lot of guys with very long sentences that are in here doing very awesome, productive work that ripples out into the community, and we want to show that.
I feel like it's so important to shed light on what's going on in here, because the question is, why do people keep coming back? And in order to do that, you have to come inside the prison and see how habits are formed and how people live their lives in here. What is this environment like? And we're going to learn the differences in society from prison. Like, we're going to be able to see that and showcase that and go on a journey to see what leads to success and what leads to failure. There's no greater way to discover that except for completely immersing yourself in an environment like this and breaking it down and kind of unpacking what is what.
So you were exonerated 24 years almost for something you didn't do. You led your way out of prison. Now you're happily married. I heard the term leader on two courts. So you have a wife who leads in her realm. You've clearly led your way out. What are you doing here, man? Why come back here?
Well, a couple of reasons. One, I found it to be therapeutic for me. When I first came back, like I was overcome with anxiety and just my PTSD was just lighting me up like a Christmas tree. And in order to overcome your fears and your anxiety, like, you got to lean into it. You got to sit in it. And like I learned that inside. And one of the things I learned in prison is, like, you got to face your fears. Just because you're afraid of it don't mean it's going to go away. You can't stick your head in the sand and expect it to just disappear. So I had to come back here and face this and see this and not let this own me. Like I felt so powerless when I came home, and when I saw a flyer about MSP, it shut me down. Like I never expected that. Like it just completely unreal. And the other part of it is like I hear some of the rhetoric that's outside about prisoners, and I'm saying, like, there's more to the story. Like, let's go on a journey together. Let me tell you my story. Let me tell you some stories about other people. Let me tell you about the people that are out in society that are successful and what they did inside. But in order to do that, we first have to come inside and see what's going on. And I am here because I believe that there are people in here, if given a shot and given an environment that'll help them change and be conducive, they'll get out and be successful. And that's what's important at the end of the day, whether you feel like it's the right thing to do, or the reality of, do I want to be mean and cruel to this individual who may get out and be my neighbor and expect him to be successful and expect me to have my peace of mind? Like, no. Like,
we're obligated.
Yeah,
we are obligated to help people do better. That's what we owe the community. I mean, I'm sure as a staff member, you can maybe speak to that a little bit. Like, why empower? Why leadership? I think most of the people who are listening this from a real high level would say, why would you ever want people in prison to develop as leaders?
The structure of incarceration in the prison system is built around command and control and risk mitigation. First and foremost, the safety and security of the facility is paramount to all. Right. So it could be viewed as what? It could be viewed.
Choose your words.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
As collective empowerment, or it's some kind of.
Does it weaken the stance of the staff member to relinquish some autonomy, to give some trust? I think some would answer that question, yes. But I don't think they see the big picture ultimately. So my viewpoint is that it takes all of us, and, offenders, residents, staff, all of us together have to cohabitate in this environment. And as staff, like, it's the Department of Corrections, not the Department of Incarceration. So what are we doing? I think first and foremost, our goal as staff needs to be to correct or to help facilitate growth. And I think when you see the big picture, you understand that relinquishing some trust, some autonomy, some humanity pays dividends in that same effort to affect safety and security of the institution. Right. It's just a proactive approach.
Right.
But I think that's lost on a lot of staff, especially newer staff. And, even myself, it took me years to come to the realization that you can affect change on the front end rather than the back. The interactions you have every day with the men or women incarcerated affect how you're going to deal with that individual for the rest of their stay. And like Jonathan Irons is a good example. He was one of the first guys that I connected with as an officer here at Jefferson City Correctional Center. And we're, as testament, 10 years later, we're sitting at a table together recording a podcast. So you just never know how far the ripple travels, and how much one interaction or communication can change things for the better. So
we see that over and over again. And even the risk management, now we have like 4 years of leadership development and 0 issues. The empowerment is not proven to be the risk, I think, that it's often thought of when it's done in a proper way and involves staff. You see empowerment does really become growth.
I want to ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
You, as a correction officer, I imagine you were taught some things that that kind of kept you up at night? You know, it just as you saw it play out, how did you switch your heart posture to be countercultural to what was taught here? Because like the old school was different.
When I was raised by old school. I'm third generation corrections, but I've with that stern father figure that was a leader in corrections my entire childhood. I had a rebellious streak from the get-go, if that makes sense. I've never been comfortable with the status quo or whatever the answer that was given to me was. I like to think for myself. And so, you know, when you start in, or at least then, when you start, it's be firm, fair, and consistent. Treat them all exactly the same. Don't cross the line in the sand. Don't even approach it, or else you're dirty, or you're a hug-a-thug, or whatever the case may be. Well, that never really sat right with me when I'm sitting in a situation with another man, like you, for instance. Do I feel threatened? Do I feel... No. We're just talking as men. And so whenever a situation arises with somebody that you already have a rapport with, it's not... How do you treat everybody exactly the same? Everything's circumstantial. Everything's situational. So I think at the forefront, the trepidation in relinquishing that autonomy to staff further condones the status quo, right? If you can't even approach the line, how do you reach across it and work together with another group of people? You can't do it. So there has to be a collaborative effort, and you can only get there by treating individuals as individuals, people as humans, you know? And I think that's where it all starts. That's where all the change has to start.
And a willingness. You had a willingness 5 years ago to be the only one. I mean, I guess I would say like GLA was part of that too. But, you know, I tell people often that you see a lot of bells and whistles when it goes well, but the person taking the risk at the beginning that often doesn't show. It doesn't show that you as a major are turning no's into yeses with the people above you, and that was a risk to your professional career, at least, if it didn't go well, or if things, you know, if the system proved itself right and that risk was bad, you know, I think a lot of people, like you said, don't even want to approach that line because they don't want to risk their own personal development, their own careers. But at the same time, take this now 5 years down the road, it crosses the street to a maximum security facility that's having its own laundry list of problems, you know, just a known bad culture, which through this podcast we'll try to define what culture change even is within prison. So being able to approach that line, we define that, but there's risk there, there's fear, there's what happens if it does fail. Is failure fatal? In prison, failure often is fatal, literally and figuratively. You know, whether if you're trying to get a program off the ground, or you're trying to do something and one small thing happens and it's perceived by someone who's a decision maker as a non-starter, all of your efforts go away in a moment by one person who may or may not even understand what it is you're trying to do. So the fact that you came by and listened and then tried to make something, I mean, that's what we need more of.
Hey, it's Rasul Berry, the host of the film Juneteenth, Faith and Freedom. If you're enjoying the Pull Up podcast, You can find more content like this, including the award-winning documentary that tells the story of Juneteenth through the perspective of those whose ancestors were emancipated on June 19, 1865, which is what the holiday is all about. Check it out in the Pando app and subscribe to Our Daily Bread Ministries right here on this platform and get it wherever you get your podcasts. Now back to the show.
It's a very complex thought, culture change, when just the interactions you have to have as a prerequisite to getting a program off the ground, or ultimately culture change, even those are risk to both parties.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, both sides.
I've seen guys have to defend themselves in physical altercations for speaking to staff, and conversely, I'm ridiculed by the entire staff body for going out of my way for a guy when it's just the right thing to do, or what I felt was the right thing to do. And I think morally, ethically, you can push past a lot of fear and anxiety if you're following your moral compass and you're acting on what you know to be right. We're doing all of this because a perfect storm existed, I think. Mm-hmm. And I think the environment is still conducive to further and further change. And that's not just here. I think societally, things have changed enough. I think perception of corrections and prisons, residents, staff is better than it ever has been. And I think we're afforded an opportunity right now across the United States, around the world, to really affect change where there's been stagnation for decades.
Do you think, as a correctional officer, and I put emphasis on correction, a correctional officer, do you feel like correctional officers bear some responsibility and ability to impact an offender's success upon release based on how the environment is in prison and how it's created and cultivated and governed inside?
1,000%.
Why would you say that?
We all have, it's all predicated on accountability and responsibility on both parties. Yeah. We all have a part to play and the way you carried yourself affected how I carry myself, and vice versa, right? And that's just what it is, because at the end of the day, we're people, and human interaction is what it is, regardless of whether or not you find yourself in an unnatural environment. Human interaction is still human interaction, and we all bleed onto each other. We all affect how each other thinks and acts, and absolutely we bear responsibility. If we're going to ask men to change and be reformed and go out and follow society's rules, then as a prerequisite to that ask, we have to be the standard, right? And we also have to set expectations for guys that are higher than the status quo, which is get out and don't get in trouble again. Well, that doesn't. There's a lot more to an individual story than get out and don't do it again. Don't come back. So why aren't we pushing for success and happiness and
inspired and encouraged,
healthy parenting, healthy relationships? Like, the story's so much bigger than get out and don't commit a crime again. That shouldn't be the standard. If you set the bar too low, then people aren't really pushed to try and exceed past it.
Right.
So we absolutely bear responsibility, and I think that's a large part of my part to play in all of this.
Well, and it's wisdom is the skill of living. You're learning living skills in prison. They're either good or they're bad. And all of that goes out. people think of reentry as people get out of prison and who's going back to the community, but you're sending COs back out into the community too. You think they don't take what happens here home to their families? You don't think there's a ripple effect to the children of corrections officers, of the communities of corrections officers? We all have an obligation. You know, in this podcast, we're going to talk about leadership principles. We're going to show leadership principles really as biblical principles in action. What is my biblical obligation to the people that I'm next to and I'm around? And what he just described was service. He's aware that there's more than just this moment transaction with this individual that I have to win for the safety and security of the institution. But if you could just see that 1,000 ripple, that goes back to his subordinate's child, because he added aggression to a situation that he could have brought resolution to. And so we're obligated as leaders, as Christians, whatever your creed is, whatever your faith is, whatever your motive is, as your character, as who we are obligated to help the people around us and to understand that ripple effect. So I think often people think of leadership as strength or as management or as like, hurting people or manipulation. Yeah.
To get what you want.
Right. And what we're going to show is how leadership is changing the facility that we're sitting in, but also how it isn't transactional, how it isn't mudslinging, it isn't looking back, it's looking forward. We don't have to dig into the wrongs that we have all done, or we don't have to keep revisiting those. We need to understand enough to look forward and try to have a positive effect on the things around us. And we can do that now. So much of what we hear in prison is, I can't do anything until so-and-so and such and such. I can't do, I'm not doing this. And they wind up pressing their bunk for 2 decades and can't do anything. And I know from my experience, and as I know Jonathan knows too, you can do it. There are guys that are doing a lot in prison, and it should be shown, because that's part of the fix to the system.
Yeah, I knew. I had
Part of the fix to society. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're
but
right.
we're doing right now is literally changing the world, right? One human life at a time. The ripple effect goes so deep, and I just didn't want that point to get lost. Like, we're here to affect change specifically in prisons, and affect the culture and send people home healthy and intact and whole, emotionally available. But all of that affects everything else.
Well, it's inside out.
It affects the economy. It affects the workforce. It affects public safety. It affects everything.
Everything.
Right.
It's so intertwined. Like, we spend so much money on prisons that we forget that we have education to really pour into, and that's going to help lead the way from that. So we have an opportunity to have people that are in here actually share their testimonies and share what's going on and the path that they chose, and actually help other kids not come here. Like, look, I was here. You don't want to go down this road. Like, everyone here has the capacity to go back into their communities and back into society and make a difference. But if you don't give them an opportunity to practice character development and build skills and leadership in an environment like this, you're setting them up to fail. And 90% of the time, they're going to fail.
And you can't just give half. So you can't visit strength and chaos and conflict resolution and not deal with vulnerability and deal with fear and deal with struggle. You see so much of that in the system. Like, I'm in prison 24/7 for 7 years. You can't just deal with my thought and not deal with my feelings, right? There's a lot of damaged emotions and things that exist in prison. There's a lot of bad behavior, and I think we glaze right over it and, get to the fix. And so, autonomy and having people understand that they have control, but also that they can do it, that they can succeed, that it's inside of them, that you can inspire change. Change really, I believe, is only inspired or encouraged. I don't think you can, I don't think that comes through threat. I don't think that comes through deprivation. And
legislate it.
No, you can't legislate it. So
Can't
how do you,
dictate it or mandate it.
Exactly. So how do you do that in a prison? And I think we've kind of shown that. And so we wanted to find a place to start the podcast where we're not talking about just a leadership program per se, because the word program in prison has its own thing where it's an hour or two every Wednesday from 1 to 3, and then you just go on to the next thing. We're going to show how this is changing the culture inside of one prison, but also we've started this program in a prison in Brazil. We're in several different states, in jail facilities, minimum, medium, and maximum security. It's a universal language. It's like he said, it is global change. It's the problems in what you see is that people aren't sitting down and having conversations about what's real and how to make things better. We speak in 150 characters at a time, and we only talk to the people that we agree with. And so prison is a microcosm opportunity. It's extreme because of the outcomes, but it's an opportunity to show what can be done in the community at large. If you can do it here, you can do it anywhere. If you can get inmates and staff to come closer to a line, you can do that anywhere.
And play on the same softball team together. I'm still blown away. See inmates and staff play on not play against each other, staff on inmates, but inmates and staff on the same team playing together. They was killing it too. What was the score? They beat them by like 20 points.
I know they won.
Good God.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm just sitting here hoping that we're going to inspire change where people are.
We're all on the same team.
That's
at the end of the day, we're all on the same team.
Yep.
On this podcast, you're going to get to live in the solution with us. We're not going to focus on all the things that are wrong. We want to see and investigate like what is right, what is happening that is right and leading to success. That's extremely important, because if all you're concerned about is problem, like you're going to get lost on that loop. And it's going to take you down, and it's going to discourage you, when that is not at all the truth here. And there's so much life happening here, and it can't stay hidden forever. It just can't.
So that's it. The Pull Up Podcast, leadership podcast from inside a prison. I know from the time that I spent 6 years in prison, I felt at times helpless and like I had no control over myself, no influence. We want to show you that no matter where you are sitting, whatever prison you're in right now, you have influence that you can use for the greater good, that you have influence in your environment, and that you can be part of the solution. We're going to show you people who are leading currently inside of prison where they are, and we want you to be inspired and encouraged to know that you can do the same thing. And that about wraps it up for this week. So thanks again for joining us. This week's episode was brought to you by Our Daily Bread Ministries, helping you experience the life-changing wisdom of the Bible every day. And don't forget about it. We're serious. If you know someone who's a good example of what leadership and positive influence looks like inside of prison, let us know, and we might pull up on you. You can contact us through Our Daily Bread Ministries or reach out to me directly, and we will connect with your facility and see if we can set up a visit. Until then, I want to thank this week's guests, who are myself, your host, Bo Cornelius, along with my good friends, Kyle Kempker and Jonathan Irons. And finally, a special thanks to those who work behind the scenes to make this podcast possible. Missouri Department of Corrections, Jefferson City Correctional Center, Warden Kelly Morris, the guys at Jefftown, who, by the way, helped capture this conversation you're hearing on this podcast while serving time themselves, doing some really incredible work inside. And my friends at Golden Eagle Creative, who produce it all. We'll see you right here at the same time in 2 weeks.